It's now 2 p.m. Geneva time. We are now officially launching this event. Excellencies, dear colleagues, good afternoon to who is with us at the International Environment House, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to who is with us on WebEx or is now watching the video of this event. The Geneva Environment Network and the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention on Mercury have the pleasure to welcome you today for a briefing on the forthcoming 5th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Minamata Convention on Mercury, which will kick off in Geneva at the end of this month under the presidency of Romania. And to formally welcome you to this event, we are joined online by the president of the conference, Ms. Claudia Dumitru. We have also invited the host country of the convention, Switzerland, to co-open this event with Romania. Michel Chiron, head of the global affairs for the Swiss Federal Office for the Environment, is joining us online. Indeed, Switzerland supports many activities related to the global chemicals and waste cluster based here in Geneva, and also many other environmental activities, and makes briefings such as the one that you are attending today possible. We warmly thank them for their support. The Executive Secretary of the Minamata Convention is currently in Latin America, in Brasilia, for the last of the regional meetings in preparation of the upcoming conference of the parties, which is why she won't be able to join this briefing. Nevertheless, we have with us three great colleagues from the Secretariat that will brief you on the preparations. We are also joined today by other actors from civil society or within the UN system moving forward in beating mercury pollution agenda. These actors and many more will already be very active and busy next week with the online events that our friends of the Minamata Convention are holding, the week where they will be celebrating an important milestone, their 10th anniversary. There also, as I will mention at the end of this event, we hope to have many of you joining us as the Geneva Environment Network will be co-hosting 3 of these online events with many institutions from Geneva and beyond. As our panelists and most of you know, this year has been extremely busy for who follows the chemicals and waste agenda. I won't list here the numerous milestones we have achieved or will have to achieve by the end of this year. Nevertheless, let me mention that our welcoming guests and many of you were who are here in this room online were attending last week the International Conference on Chemicals Management in Bonn, Germany. That led to the adoption of the new global framework on chemicals for a planet free of harm from chemicals and waste, a high-level declaration also on a few other resolutions. And with the adoption of this global framework, chemicals, waste and pollution are recognized at the same level as the crisis of climate change and nature and biodiversity loss, which already have frameworks in place. The new framework calls for more ambition and urgent action by all stakeholders and sectors to protect present and future generations. And here we are today, preparing a new important milestone, looking at mercury pollution-related action. It's now time to move to the first agenda item of this event. And before you are formally welcome, let me remind you that the documents presented, the summary, as well as the video of the event will be made available on the webpage of this event. The link is being shared in the chat for who is online or on the screen for who is in the room with us. Throughout the event, those of you who are online can raise their questions by using the Q&A box. And we have 2 dedicated sessions to answer these. And finally, let me also add for who is online that the transcription is available at the bottom left of your screen in more than 100 languages. So now moving on to the first formal part of this event, to formally welcome you, I will first invite Claudia Dumitru, who is the president of the 5th Conference of the Parties to the Minamata Convention on Mercury, to deliver her opening statement. Ms. Dumitru, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important event. I am now with you, very happy to reflect on the great strides the Minamata Convention parties and all its stakeholders have made in just a decade, and also to engage the parties in the negotiation process of the upcoming 5th Minamata Conventions conference. When we talk about achievements, I think it's well known that we have established controls on emissions and releases. We also have promoted the transformation of artisanal and small-scale gold mining. And of course, we have regulated mercury trade. And we all been witnessed on how developing and transition economies have benefited from the solid financial mechanism to implement the convention, as it is evidenced by the high rate of completion of the reporting procedures. But this is what we have done, and it's necessary to remind everybody what must be accomplished, of course, because our trip is far from over, and there are important duties ahead. And we must remain committed to meeting established deadlines on a variety of fronts. Of course, we have to encourage the diligent implementation of national action plans for artisanal and small-scale gold mining, while ensuring that indigenous people and local communities are fully engaged in determining approaches, and also secure the necessary funds for the convention to be fully implemented and demonstrated to be effective in protecting people and the environment from the harmful effect of gold mining. I believe that it's also very important to acknowledge the efforts made by the African region in preparing the proposal of their amendments related to the consideration of mercury in cosmetics, the phase out of fluorescent lamps, and the consideration of dental amalgam. I'm expecting constructive and successful negotiation in this regard in the meeting that is going to take place in almost 3 weeks from now. I also believe that it's very important to mention a milestone that can be considered the proposal of the establishment of mercury waste threshold, like it is foreseen in Article 11 of the Convention. And we are all very grateful to the hard work done by the group in this regard. Nevertheless, the upcoming COP and the 10 years anniversary represent for all the actors involved in the process a new step forward for the youngest and very ambitious convention. I will not keep you longer, but I would like to conclude that it's very important to continue our global concerted efforts in the spirit of Minamata Convention, which lives in each of us. And of course, we must continue to collaborate in order to make Mercury history, because we can all benefit from a safer, healthier future if we do work together constructively. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dumitru, and we look forward to welcome you in person in a few weeks from now in Geneva. To co-open this event, it's now our pleasure to turn to Michel Chiron from Switzerland. Michel, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Diana, for giving me the floor. On behalf of the Swiss government, I would like to welcome all of you to this Gen briefing on the 5th Conference of the Parties to the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Thanks everyone for attending this meeting in Geneva or online, and many thanks to the Geneva Environment Network, to you, Diana, and your team for having organized this session. The COP5 marks the 10-year milestone since the adoption of this convention in 2013, and the COP5 provides an opportunity to get ready for the first effectiveness evaluation of the convention, and it is also an opportunity to decide for more action to be effective in addressing the various issues we are still facing with Mercury 10 years after the adoption of the treaty. And speaking of milestones, I would like to empathize what you have said, Diana, in your introduction. So since a few days, we have a new global framework on chemicals for a planet free of harm from chemicals and waste. The framework that we have adopted in Bonn has 5 strategic objectives and a number of targets. There is a high-level declaration and there are 12 resolutions. The framework complements other international agreements, including, of course, the Chemicals and Waste Conventions, and the framework supports their implementation. That means that the Minamata COP has the opportunity to discuss how the convention can contribute to the implementation of the new framework and the implementation of the ICCM5 resolutions, and also how the Minamata Convention can benefit from the new framework, which is a multi-stakeholder, which links to the SDGs, and which, more generally speaking, simply elevates the whole chemicals and waste cluster to a new political level. And certainly the Chemicals and Waste Conventions and the new framework will benefit from working as a team. The teamwork is needed to still better communicate the challenges we have globally with chemicals, waste, and pollution, to have decision makers realize the importance of addressing not only climate change, biodiversity loss, but also the pollution issues, and that the cost of inaction is very high. It is also an opportunity to get further out of the silos and demonstrate that the Mercury issues are not to be seen only from the environment side, but is also to be addressed to ensure human health, good working conditions, and other important aspects beyond the environment view. The setting for this joint effort, of course, is a good one. Geneva hosts the Secretariat of the Chemicals and Waste Conventions. Geneva also hosts the Secretariat of the new global framework, and it hosts also relevant organizations such as the WHO, ILO, WTO, and others. So with that, in that context, I wish you all a very good briefing today on the COP5, and I thank in advance the panelists for the valuable information they will provide on the COP5, and also their views on what needs to be addressed with COP5. And of course, I look very much forward to welcoming you all in Geneva in a few weeks for the Minamata COP. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michel, for your opening statement. So now that you have all been formally welcomed to this event, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the update on the preparations of the meeting of the Conference of the Parties that will kick off on the 30th of October here in Geneva. And we'll start by looking at the logistical and organizational matters. And we have with us, we'll start then by hearing from Ana Garcia, who is in charge of communications and knowledge management at the Secretariat of the Convention, and Richard Gutierrez, who is a program management officer within the Secretariat, about how things are being prepared in terms of logistics and organizational matters. And I think, Anna, you will start, and so you have the floor.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, everyone in person here in Geneva and online. And as you can see from this slide, we are getting ready for the COP. As our COP president mentioned, we are only 3 weeks away from the COP now. And on the convention website, the link is up on the screen. You will find all relevant information for your preparation. Documents are posted. You can click from the homepage to the main banner and you will get to the COP section, or on the top of the menu under decision making, the label called COP5. As of today, there are like 35 working documents available in the 6 UN languages and 34 information documents for you to get ready. Let me see if I can move the slide. So from this slide, this is the provisional agenda, and my colleague Marianne Bailey, the Senior Coordination Officer of the Minamata Convention Secretariat, will provide you an overview of the main highlights of each matter of consideration by the COP. But some key documents related to the agenda that I'd like to draw your attention. One is document 1, which contains the provisional agenda, and document 5.1 at 1 provides an overview of the agenda items to be considered during the meeting with a reference guide to the document that have been prepared by the Secretariat. In Annex 2 of the annotated agenda, you will find also the tentative schedule of work for COP5. Inf 1 serves as a reference to guide to the documents that have been prepared per agenda item, and Inf 2 provides an overview with all the information that has been submitted, regarding the status of ratifications, parties notifications, national reports, and other pertinent information. Moving on to the slides, this is the COP overview, where you can see all the working times. Please note that the summer times end on Saturday 28 to Sunday 29 October to get ready with your clocks and to arrive on time to the meeting. The registration will open on site on Sunday 29 from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then will be available through the week from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. Ideally, the working hours to support good working conditions are estimated to not to be extended beyond 10 p.m. every day. During the week, there will be knowledge labs from Tuesday to Friday, and later on, my colleague Richard will provide you more information about knowledge labs and other events that you can see reflected both on Monday, Tuesday, and also this special session on Sunday evening, which is the projection of the movie that we will cover it later on. The room assignments will be provided on site, and this schedule, this overview, where you see when the plenary sessions take place, the regional meetings and bureau meetings, is already uploaded on the website in PDF and also in an interactive way. And now I will hand over to my colleague Richard to move on.
All right. Thank you very much, Anna, and to everyone present, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us, and also to everybody online, good day and good evening. It's been a pretty busy time for the Secretariat, and the slide in front of you, I'll just want to highlight some of the work and not necessarily go through all of it. But key points that I wanted to share with you are on the availability of recordings and presentations that are available on the Minamata Convention website. We've done a couple of documents briefing, as well as information sessions on national reporting, financial mechanism, ASGM, and effectiveness evaluation. If you weren't able to join us at those briefings, those are recorded and available on the Minamata Convention website. And I wanted to take your attention to on October. So we've been, as Diana has already mentioned, we were in the midst of doing the GRULAC preparatory meeting. But one important event that I'd like to invite you to check on the convention website was the Indigenous Peoples Dialogue, which happened yesterday in Brasilia. You can find more information about that dialogue in our website. Upcoming as well as on October 16, we have a briefing for new parties that's going to be online, as well as on October 12, we are working with SPREP to have a COP5 briefing, which will be happening in Palau. So I move on to the next item. Just to quickly update you on the 4 preparatory meetings that's been done. For the Asia Pacific, this was done on September 5 and 6. Africa, September 12 and 13. Eastern Europe, 18 and 19. As I mentioned, the GRULAC meeting is happening as we speak. So it's been quite busy for the team. Now, moving on to the next slide, I wanted to just give you some briefing on some of the work, or at least some of the policies that we are trying to observe. The Secretariat is trying, before I move on to that, going over the registration and credentials. So for the registration, please take note that it's a two-step process. Delegates, especially the national focal points, have been given access to the Chrono system, online registration system, and they are to input the needed information there. And then the second step to the process is the sending of the nomination letters to the Executive Secretary. For more information about the two-step registration process, please visit our website. I also just wanted to highlight at this point in time, we have 750 participants, both parties and observers that are registered currently for COP5. Now, moving on to the credentials, this is quite important for parties. This is issued either by the head of state or government. The deadline is 24 hours before the start of the meeting, which is approximately 10 a.m. Tuesday, October 31st, which we should be receiving the credentials. Now, if you are unable to send the credentials on time, do not fret. You can still submit it at the meeting itself. Just take note that the original credentials needs to be handed over by the representatives at the registration desk upon arrival at the meeting on the first day of the COP5 meeting at the COP5. Now, moving on to the next item is the policies that we would like people to observe, particularly two items. First is the code of conduct and the greening of the COP. So let me just quickly go over the code of conduct to prevent harassment at events organized under the Minamata Convention. So this was the code of conduct was notified by the Executive Secretary on January 11 of this year. The Secretariat is committed to enabling events at which everyone can participate in an inclusive and respectful and safe environment. Please take note that this policy is not just applied at the COP, but this is being observed in all subsidiary meetings in the preparation for the COP. This includes the regional meetings that have occurred and are occurring. So for more information, delegates are requested to familiarize themselves with this policy, and you may find that in the information for COP5 at our convention website. The last item that I wanted to touch briefly on is the greening of the COP policy, which the Secretariat is encouraging everyone to join us with. And that is, we're looking at reducing waste at the COP including all of the preparatory meetings. And this involves working with the CICG and catering services to make sure we have reusable drinking containers and also avoiding plastics at the meeting, as well as looking at a paperless meeting at the COP. So for all participants, please take a look at our policies and more information will be at our website. With that, I pass on the microphone to my colleague, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. This is a quick heads up about the services that the Secretariat are providing in terms of IT and media coverage. So starting with IT, we have set our regular now digital ecosystem to support parties and all delegates in facilitating the access to all the information. So on the one hand, you will know that we have our official website, which is in 3 languages, in English, French, and Spanish, with all the working documents in the 6 UN languages. Since last COP, we have been able to feature a dynamic schedule to facilitate the connection with the working times, plus the agenda that is being covered during plenary and with the correct reference. We will also highlight events and information for participants. There will be an intranet, which is a safe space within the same website with a username and a password for all conference room papers, contact groups, documents, and statements. Very recently, we launched the online budget forum, which is still open until the 13th of October, and parties can submit comments and questions to the Secretariat about the program of work and budget for the upcoming biennium. There will be IT support online through the email that you can see there, and also on site during the whole week. And one new feature is that the plenary sessions will be streamed only for following the proceedings. There's no online connection, but there will be open to follow them online. And regarding the communication coverage, there's already set media engagement with press conferences. Next week, we are having a press conference at the Palais des Nations to brief the international media about what to expect at the COP. And we will have another one after the COP with the major outcomes. We are also preparing media advisory. There will be press releases and web stories. We will count on the EMB reporting services and daily video and photo professional coverage, as well as with a daily newsletter to be sent out to all COP participants with the schedule, relevant activities, some videos, photos. And a new feature that we have also is a live blog for quick updates during the COP that you will see now on the COP5 page, some social media campaigns. And of course, as always, we like to partner with relevant stakeholders like, UNEP, Geneva Environment Network, JEP, and other MEAs to help us spread the word. With that, we have concluded all the logistics aspects. So I'm handing over back to you, Diana. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. And indeed, now we will address substantive matters. And I'm turning to my left to Marianne Bailey, who is the Senior Coordination Officer within the Secretariat. And I'm going to help you with this. And don't forget to open your mic. There you are. And please take over.
Thank you so much, Diana, and thank you and your team for organizing this briefing, and to Claudia and Michelle for really giving some very clear and compelling opening remarks about the importance of COP5. So to give you an overview of the substantive agenda items that we'll be addressing at COP5, this is probably too small print for anyone to be able to read. But it is available in multiple places on our website and in these slides. So what I will be covering today are the item 4 of the agenda. This is all the substantive matters for consideration by the COP. And I'll be doing them very briefly. So I hope you feel free to look into all the COP documents and previous briefings for more information on each one. I won't be covering in depth things like election of officers, program of work and budget, rules of procedure. But let me go right ahead into some of these substantive items. So a key item for COP5 will be the continued work on mercury added products and industrial processes using mercury. At COP4, there were 8 product categories added for phase out by 2025. And 2 new requirements on dental amalgam. And these entered into force just last week for those parties that have opted to not separately ratify that amendment. And COP5 then will continue its work to consider phase out dates for 4 other mercury added products that were deliberated on at COP4, for which only the phase out date is to be decided by COP5. And then also whether to shift polyurethane production using mercury-containing catalysts to a specific phase-out date, and also the availability of non-mercury alternatives for 2 industrial processes already controlled but not phased out in the annexes. So there was a lot of intersessional work, submissions, a lot of technical information on the availability of alternatives, et cetera. But also, very importantly, under this agenda item, the COP will consider 3 sets of amendment proposals. These were submitted by Botswana and Burkina Faso on behalf of the Africa region, and they cover additional categories of fluorescent lamps, mercury content of skin lightening products, and additional dental amalgam requirements. And then moving on to this trio of topics, emissions, waste, and releases. So for emissions, this is a notable agenda item because mercury emissions to the air are, of course, the major pathway for global environmental impact. And we have not had this Article 8, on the COP agenda since the adoption of the important guidances for implementation at COP1. So we've seen from national reporting that many of our parties are taking the required measures already in advance of deadlines even, but with key deadlines really looming on emissions control, the parties have a great deal of implementation to undertake. So we'll talk about that at COP5. And on releases of mercury to land and water, we will, the COP will consider the draft guidance on BAT-BEP for releases. These are relevant releases as articulated in the convention. And the draft guidance was prepared by a group of technical experts that was chaired by Chile and Eswatini. And then on waste, this will be one of the more challenging issues. So we're prepared for this to go to a contact group to continue and hopefully conclude consideration of threshold values that would apply to waste contaminated by mercury, above which the general requirements of the waste article would apply. And which already apply to waste consisting of mercury and waste containing mercury. Again, we had a group of technical experts doing a great deal of work on this. So they have recommendations as well as some choices for the COP to make on the numerical value. Moving on now, I hope I'm pacing myself okay, but Diana will let me know. We'll consider the review of the financial mechanism. This will be the second review of the financial mechanism. The COP will also have in front of it the GEF Council report to the COP, and this in the context of the GEF 8 considerable increase to our allocation, now at $269 million for the GEF 8 period. But also in the context of the specific international program, which is the second part of our financial mechanism, and its midterm evaluation. So there's also some information available on the fourth round of applications to the SIP, which our governing board has not been able to launch yet because the contributions have not yet been sufficient for that purpose. So the review of the financial mechanism will have a lot of important discussion about the level of funding, but also other important considerations such as on integration across focal areas within the GEF, the ability of parties at the national level to work together through their GEF operational focal points to make that kind of integration and an increase in results of the GEF projects for Mercury really scale up and be able to provide advantages in the implementation of biodiversity, climate change, and other topics, but also for those benefits to flow back to the Minamata Convention in terms of full implementation. And then we will also take up artisanal and small-scale gold mining. My colleague Ken here will give much more flavor to this topic in a few moments. But because ASGM remains the largest source of mercury use and emissions globally, we really wanted to give the parties a very solid information on where we are in implementation. And that's on notifications, submissions of national action plans, the review of national action plans, and just where we stand in that whole picture of trying to have all the parties that notified us on ASGM have their national action plans in place and being implemented. But the other important part of the ASGM decision will be the follow-up from COP4 on having the voices of Indigenous peoples and local communities more prevalent in the design and implementation of national action plans. So we've done a great deal of work on this front. And in fact, just yesterday in Brasilia, on the margins of our regional meeting for the Latin American Caribbean region, there was a really important and well-attended meeting on Indigenous people with Indigenous peoples on this topic. So you will be reading more about that, I think, on our website very soon. We've launched an Indigenous peoples platform And we think that the draft decision prepared for this topic will really help move this work forward in a very inclusive way and keep the parties on track for their implementation. Somewhat related to this topic is biodiversity. Of course, the recent adoption of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework was a really big deal for the world, but also for Minamata. And our parties at COP4 requested that we identify a set of activities that could be undertaken in this coming biennium to advance implementation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework by tackling Mercury, which is a key driver of biodiversity loss. So this relates to Target 7 of the GBF on highly hazardous chemicals. And we discussed the possibility for the expert group on indicators under the Global Biodiversity Framework to look at Mercury under Target 7 closely. But there's also other targets that our work to address Mercury can impact positively. So I want to draw your attention to an information document in addition to the decision document. INF 27 provides a really, I think, I'm a little biased, but I think it provides a really useful analysis of the way that Minamata and the framework can be mutually implemented and increase mutual results. Now, moving on to Mercury supply sources and trade. This is another article that we haven't brought up in recent COPs, but its implementation is, of course, super important. And at our COP4, on the margins of COP4, the government of Indonesia that hosted COP4 brought forward the Bali Declaration on illegal trade in mercury. So with that, and also in the context of our first full national reports, bringing forward a lot of information and challenges on Article 3 implementation, we have prepared this document and a draft decision to continue advancing work, not only on the consent regime for trade in elemental mercury, but also on the other aspects of Article 3, which include stocks, identifying stocks and supply sources in the parties' territory, as well as controlling excess mercury from decommissioned chlor-alkali facilities, and of course addressing primary mining and eliminating primary mercury mining. So this document brings forward some of the recommendations of our implementation and compliance committee in that regard. And then I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking way too much. There's a lot of information to pack in here, but I hope you're getting a sense of all these different agenda items. On capacity building, technical assistance, and technology transfer, this will be addressed at COP5 primarily because our Article 14 on this topic has a requirement for the COP to periodically consider information on alternative technologies, needs, and challenges of the parties in relation to tech transfer. So the draft decision proposes some work that we would undertake to prepare for the COP consideration of that at some point in the future. And then we also have some of the implementation and compliance committee's recommendations on capacity building that flow from the national reporting needs expressed by parties. And it also talks about the role of both the Secretariat and the UNEP Global Mercury Partnership, which is a very, very key player in the whole perspective of capacity building for parties and other stakeholders. So the Global Mercury Partnership's work is brought forward to some degree in our meeting document. And of course, they have also provided their full report in an information document that I encourage you to take a look at. Also, another information document that's really relevant to this topic is that the Jeff-funded Planet Gold program has provided a really wonderful information document on the tech transfer experiences from the first 8 countries participating in the Planet Gold program on ASGM. Now, I've mentioned already a couple of times our first full national reports. We undertook a tremendous effort, not only to make sure our parties knew how to report and could do it easily, but that they did it and that their reports were complete, and any missing information was then filled in. And we're very, very proud of our reporting rate, which is at 95% for the first full national reports. So we're really pleased that the parties really made a tremendous effort to get to this reporting rate. And we think there's a number of factors that led to that, but really it was a big effort on the part of so many players. It also was facilitated by our online reporting tool. And we also have a dashboard now of the reporting results. So the Secretariat compiled a lot of information on the national reports for consideration by the Implementation and Compliance Committee, which spent this past biennium over the course of 2 meetings looking at the information coming out of the national reports. So you may wish to look at our information document 20 that provides a lot of information that the ICC also looked at when they considered this information. And the ICC came up with a number of recommendations that will, so for this agenda item, the ICC recommendations on potentially amending the reporting format or tweaking the reporting guidance will come forth. But there are also a number of ICC recommendations that are highlighted in the meeting documents for other agenda items. I would like to point out also that you can see on the bottom left of the slide that our national reports are submitted by our national focal points, and we're also quite proud that there is an excellent gender balance among our national focal points. So we're really proud of the work that they have all done to identify, notify us of national focal points, and have that gender balance. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of the substantive items. A big one, as Michelle already pointed out, is effectiveness evaluation. But already at COP4, a lot of work on this topic took place. COP4 agreed to start the first effectiveness evaluation. COP4 adopted the framework, and it established the open-ended scientific group, which has already had a number of meetings, including an in-person meeting here in Geneva. So we're really pleased with the progress made. So what remains for COP5 is to establish the effectiveness evaluation group. And within that, COP4 already established the terms of reference for the effectiveness evaluation group. So what remains to be decided is its membership. And then the COP will also consider the indicators that have been worked on by our parties over the last 2 or more bienniums with a lot of input from the parties. So those are there for their consideration and hopefully adoption. And then also the end date of the first effectiveness evaluation. And then on gender, we have a gender action plan that we're putting forward for the COP. and it provides a blueprint for actions to promote gender equality, actions that the Secretariat, the parties, and stakeholders could undertake, and specific activities that could be carried out in this coming biennium for consideration by COP5. So we already do, of course, incorporate gender considerations into all the work of the financial mechanism and in many other aspects of the convention and COP implementation. So we think the Gender Action Plan will just take it that much more forward and really be a leading voice on this topic, in line with what other MEAs do. And then on knowledge management, this is a new COP agenda item for us, and my colleague Anna is the chef of this great initiative to present a digital strategy that would guide the Secretariat's work better to support parties in the implementation of the convention with a digital ecosystem, building partnerships, governance, and innovation in the implementation of our knowledge management work, and then collaboration with key stakeholders like Informea. And we're really quite proud of the work that we've already done within the digital ecosystem, if that's the right terminology, such as the reporting dashboard that I already mentioned, as well as we now have a projects database and dashboard for both our GEF projects, just the Mercury allocation, as well as, and I think it'll be live in a couple of days, our specific international program. So I think that is the end of my set of topics, and I hope it's been useful. And I really appreciate the presence of all the party governments, as well as stakeholders in the room here, as well as all of you online. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne. So now we continue with the agenda, and I turn back to Richard and Anna, who will update us on COP5 events. Richard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Diana. So the COP5 events are an informal platform for parties to share information, parties and observers to share information and bring knowledge to advances, technology, research, policy at COP5. At the core of these events is really about information exchange and also building effective participation of stakeholders in the process of COP5 and its decision-making process. So in this regard, there are three types of COP5 events that will be happening. And let me just quickly describe what these events are. Enumerate first and then describe in the following slides. We have online events, knowledge lab sessions, and then what we call special events or exhibitions. So the slide in front of you is the schedule of COP5 online events. It's happening next week. And I'm very happy to share with you that there are 21 online events that that have been organized. 6 of them have been organized by parties, and the other 15 by stakeholders, which come from academia, private sector, IGOs, and NGOs. I'll let you peruse the topics at your leisure, but just to note that they cover a whole wide range of topics as well. The next item will be on knowledge labs. The knowledge labs are designed to be simple and straightforward, essentially a stripped down version of the normal side events that allow access and also, more importantly, for parties to be able to go through one event after the other. And as my colleague Anna mentioned earlier, and Diana as well, we've got these knowledge labs happening during lunchtime at the CICG. So there's going to be, and we're hoping, a lot of good interaction between the presenters and the participants at COP5. So there are 13 knowledge lab events. 3 events are organized by parties, 10 events organized by stakeholders, ranging from academia, IGOs, and NGOs. And notably including, we have 2 indigenous peoples organizations organizing the knowledge lab events as well. And then lastly, you have the exhibition. The exhibition focuses on technologies and also policy development happening on the field. And we're happy to bring forward 16 exhibitors at COP5. So you will find them at primarily at the ground floor of the CICG. In front of you, and the slide shows some of the logos of the exhibitors participating at COP5. And then I'll proceed with the next slide, just to quickly share with you a special event that's been co-organized by the Global Environment Facility and our colleagues at the United Nations Environment Program. It is an event called Mercury in Cosmetics, More Than What Meets the Eye. The aim is to confront the narrative, questioning the promotion and normalization of skin lightening to prevent the perpetuation of harmful cultural norms, and also try to drive and make sure Mercury is history. So the speakers headed by our Executive Secretary, Monica Stankovic, and also various speakers from various organizations, including Beautywell, Melanin Foundation, the Ministry of Health of Jamaica, Flexing in My Complexion, and from CNN. I pass the floor on to my colleague Anna for the next slide.
Thank you, Richard. As you all know, next week is marking a decade since the convention was signed in Kumamoto. And despite all the progress, there is still much to be done to address mercury pollution. As our COP president said before, the Minamata Convention is a young and an ambitious convention. In this context, the Secretariat has been organizing several activities, and let me go to these activities briefly that you see on the screen from down top. So for the anniversary, we are producing a video documentary and the press conference that I mentioned before. The video includes many voices to bring justice to our history. I won't make any spoiler, just stay tuned to receive the link on Tuesday that we will send to all of you and to all our audiences. And we are also producing a web story with UNEP colleagues that will be released tomorrow, also bringing many memories from the very beginning when the convention was devised. Before the COP, on Sunday, 29 October at 7 p.m., there will be a movie projection of the Minamata movie that was produced by Andrew Levitas, and we will count with the presence of him and also with representatives of the Minamata Convention on Promotion Network, MICONET, and the Executive Secretary. This event is co-organized thanks to Geneva Environment Network with Diana. It will be free, and you will have more information on the upcoming days, and looking forward to see the room full of people watching the movie. And another activity organized with the Geneva Environment Network is a special event during COP5, which is called Minamata Convention, a Decade of Global Commitment to Make Mercury History. And it will happen at lunchtime at CICG for all COP participants, and it will also be streamed for those that cannot attend the CICG in person. And through an interactive roundtable, this event will share the views of relevant stakeholders who will provide insights into the convention progress over 10 years, aiming to bring both remembrance and hope with a focus on the human aspect. It will feature diverse voices, some of them here, we will hear from them later on, but including representatives from parties, NGOs, financial mechanism, indigenous peoples, and artists engaged in environmental causes, inviting them to reflect on what the convention means to each of them. And finally, during the whole COP5 week, participants can visit the Make Mercury History photo exhibition at CICG. This exhibition is part of the Make Mercury History photo contest that the Secretariat organized and was announced, the winners were announced during the World Environment Day. For those that cannot attend in person, the exhibition is also accessible from our website in a virtual manner. And with that, I think that we have concluded finally the Secretariat presentation. So thank you all for listening to us, and back to you, Diana.
Thank you very much, Anna and colleagues, for this very complete list of updates. And we can see a lot of work behind your words and a lot of dedication also. We have invited other stakeholders to also provide their views on the upcoming Conference of the Parties meeting. But before that, I wanted to turn to the audience here in the room and those online to see if there were some burning questions on what was presented to you by the Secretariat. So I'm turning here first to the room, and I'm looking at the colleagues. So if you want to take the floor, just make me a sign. No sign, so everything was pretty clear. Not at the moment, so you might come over online. I also see that online there are no yet questions. So what I propose is that we now move with some of the, we have invited two stakeholders, as I mentioned earlier, and we, to provide their views. And we will start with our friends from the Zero Mercury Working Group. We have with us Elena Limberi di Settimo, who is joining us. I think you are in Brussels, but I know you were having some transport issues. Elena, you are the international coordinator for the Zero Mercury Working Group, but you are also a policy manager at the European Environmental Bureau, and you are backed online by your colleague, Michael Bender, who is the director of the Mercury Policy Project. With that, Elena, I think I can hand it over to you. We have your slides, so we can move them for you. Just say next.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Because I was traveling, we had organized that Michael will go ahead with this presentation, and I'm here if there are any questions. Michael, please go ahead.
Perfect. Sorry for this.
Yeah.
So, Michael, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Very well.
Great. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Michael Bender. I'm the director of the Mercury Policy Project, which is a US-based NGO, and also with Elena co-lead the Zero Mercury Working Group. Next slide, please. So who we are, the Zero Mercury Working Group is an international coalition of around 110 public interest, environmental and health NGOs from over 55 countries with our aim to reduce, eliminate mercury supply use, emissions, exposure, and supporting the implementation of the Minamata Convention. Next slide, please. So just going to do a brief overview of our views. The Zero Mercury Working Group has created views for those of you who've been around for a while, like Richard, for over 20 years. Before each major global mercury meeting, we've developed our views. And so I'll be briefly presenting on those, but not in their entirety due to the limited time. And then in the last slide, I will just present some observations. So first of all, I was glad to hear the prior speakers talking about skin lightening and talking about gender issues, because certainly with the mercury added cosmetics and specifically mercury added skin lightening products, including creams and soaps and that kind of thing, that there is a strong emphasis on marketing these products to women of color. It's clearly a case of colorism that goes back centuries, with social and environmental justice concerns underlying the level of poverty driving the use of these toxic skin lightening creams by many women around the globe, and girls and also men. So I'm just going to assume that you all have a fairly good understanding, with WHO's JEF project of the severity of the acute exposure from these creams. It truly is a global mercury crisis. We're really putting forth, our support for the African Amendment, actually all three amendments, but the one I'll focus on here is the ban on mercury added cosmetics. And currently, as you may know, in Article 4, the cosmetics containing over 1 part per million are to be, the manufacture and trade are to be ended by the end of 2020, with some exceptions for eyeshadow and that kind of thing. So what we're seeing the Africans propose here is a ban on mercury added cosmetics, and we would be proposing to support them deleting the threshold of 1 part per million. There are many developing countries and civil society as well that we have been conducting market surveillance and trying to assist governments around the world. And clearly the most cost effective and the quickest approach is through the use of handheld testing devices like XRF, which can, customs services, health ministries, environmental ministries, all can get trained with these devices and pretty much have instantaneous results. And this amendment would also shift the burden onto manufacturers to prove that they aren't adding mercury to their products. And then much like in Annex A Part 2, similar to what's already in there on dental amalgam, that there would be a setting of national objectives to stop the sales and marketing. Again, in the convention, it's just solely looking at the manufacturer and trade. But we've seen a lot of studies, a lot of testimonials that these advertising are very focused on women and children, and particularly in certain countries, like we're working with our colleagues in Pakistan, and there's a tremendous focus in television commercials. And there's also other tools that we've uncovered through our 2019 report: publicizing advisories, licensing agreements. Engaging online platforms is a very challenging area that countries have been starting to address through voluntary initiatives. And then finally, fostering the interagency and regional global collaboration and coordination, hopefully with the Minamata Convention helping to lead the charge. And finally, there's a need to control mercury compounds, which facilitates the production of mercury skin lightening creams. And the first step, we need to see an assessment of the global supply and trade of mercury compounds. So next slide, please. We'll go to the second part of our views. And again, this is just part of our views. We don't have time to go through them all, but specifically for mercury added lamps and dental amalgam, both of these categories are, for many developing countries, are cost prohibitive. I repeat, it's cost prohibitive for many developing countries, and actually developed countries as well. In the case of crematoria, the countries just can't afford to control what the majority of the mercury is from dental mercury is coming out people's mouths. So with the mercury added lamps, we know that the LEDs are available. They're superior at COP4. We made great strides and teed up for the important work ahead, which we believe should culminate in a ban on manufacture and trade by 2025. Similarly, with dental amalgam, we believe that manufacture and trade ban is feasible by 2030 without undermining the dental care. And one only needs to look at the growing list of countries that have phased down and phased out dental amalgam. And as I mentioned earlier, the views in their entirety on our website. I did want to put in a plug here for more convention resources needed, specifically targeting phase out of mercury added products under Article 4, and also better prioritizing waste collections. We constantly are getting questions from developing countries, and there's just not very much clarity around that. And next Tuesday, the African Regions webinar will be focusing in on this area. And the observation, next slide, please. So first, it's not written here, but I just want to underline the importance for national governments to get the support that they need to implement the convention. That was one of the key covenants of the convention, was the understanding that, especially for developing countries, that they would get the tools and the resources they need for mandates within the convention. So that's really important. And then, as far as awareness raising, while we in civil society continue to raise awareness contribute to supporting legislation and policy developments, more is needed to raise target awareness. And I was really happy to hear earlier people talking about the ASGM, which is very, not only is the largest use and release, but it's a very high risk acute exposure. So we think more needs to be done, more resources need to be put into raising awareness of acute exposure risks, particularly sensitive populations in situations such as artisanal small-scale gold mining and using mercury skin lighteners. And then finally, there needs to be more transparency and accountability on convention projects and funding. There was some situations over the last year that were lacking. There needs to be more openness, especially before a new project starts, on convention funding. For instance, the JEF funding, to ensure resources are expended wisely. And then just as a final example, recent national reporting indicated that around 40 parties have not started or only partially implemented Article 4 product phase out, even though it was the earliest deadline set in the treaty, which was the end of 2020. And, we're more than halfway through 2023. However, only recently have projects started to address mercury added product phase out. And Elena and I are working, as many of you know, with Tom Grondeveld on co-leading the product partnership. And we're looking to try to amplify the importance of the convention, really focusing on this low-hanging fruit demand sector that we really should be able to, in the next few years, we really should be able to end the use of most, if not all, the products in Article 4. So I'd like to just thank you for listening for a few minutes to our perspective. And of course, if you have any questions, let us know. Thanks. Next slide.
Thank you very much, Michael, for bringing here the views of the group, and for the hard work that we can also feel behind what you have presented here. And we have invited another stakeholder to update us on some of the work that has been led within the UNEP Global Mercury Partnership. We have with us Kenneth Davids, who is a UNEP colleague. Kenneth, let's hear from you your views on how the partnership will be present and engaging in the COP.
Thank you very much, Diana, and thank you to Jen and also to my Minamata Secretariat colleagues for allowing me to present. And I will talk about the Global Mercury Partnership. This is my slide clicker here. So the UNEP Global Mercury Partnership has actually been around since 2005. And this partnership to this day provides a critical role in fighting mercury pollution. The partnership is a multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral voluntary partnership. It is comprised of over 250 partners. I think there's 257 right now, coming from governments, from intergovernmental organizations, a lot of partners from civil society and NGOs. We have partners from industry and the private sector, as well as a large group from the research community and from academia. And together, these partners share a common goal of taking immediate action to reduce mercury pollution. As I said, the partnership started way back in 2005, before there was a Minamata Convention. At that time, the partnership did important work in catalyzing public opinion and laying the groundwork for what would become the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Now that the convention has entered into force, the partnership is supporting the implementation of the convention. And it does this through providing knowledge resources, scientific expertise on mercury, and also by providing awareness raising and technical and capacity building expertise to specific areas as well. The partnership is structured around 8 areas, and we just heard from Tom and Elena, who are co-leads together with US EPA in the Mercury and Products Partnership area. We also have partnership areas in artisanal and small-scale gold mining, in chlor-alkali sector, transport and freight research, coal combustion, waste management, supply and storage, and mercury releases from the cement sector. So we have partnership areas representing a lot of the sectors that are sources of mercury pollution. We have a website which is a great knowledge resource in and of itself, and what I'll show in the next couple of slides can all be found on that website. But I do encourage you to check it out for more information. So next, I'll just talk about a few recent highlights and activities that the partnership has been doing, especially in the lead up to COP5. As I think Marianne or another Secretariat colleague mentioned, there is a report of the partnership area activities for the last year that's available as a COP5 INF document. That is INF document number 32. So you can see all the activities of all the various partners in the partnership who have reported. The partnership has as its governing mechanism or steering mechanism a partnership advisory group, and this group meets about once a year. The group met last year in November on the margins of the OECD Global Forum on the Environment, actually for the first time in person since COVID. So it was a great meeting to get the partnership advisory group back together in person. And at that meeting, there were some key topics of discussion. Two important topics were mercury in oil and gas and mercury in non-ferrous metals smelting and mining. And recently, the partnership has produced study reports on both of those sectors, and so these were discussed at the meeting. You can see those links to those reports on our website. And so now we do realize that this is an area, we don't have partnership areas in these sectors, but it's an area of a lot of interest. And so we're exploring how to disseminate this work and move forward in those sectors. We also had a lot of talk about mercury trade and flows, also supply and stocks. And so going forward, a lot of our members of the Partnership Advisory Group want to see how we can work in a cross-cutting manner on this issue of mercury trade. And I think that would also include things like what Michael mentioned is trade in compounds, including those compounds that are used in skin lightening products and in trade in products as well. It's a complex issue with, in some cases, difficult to get data, but it's very important and our partners are very interested. There's also some interest, I'd say a lot of interest, and this is actually a perennial area of interest in the need for better support on mercury added product disposal and disposal of the waste that those mercury added products become and produce. And finally, we talked about needs to establish better linkages with the biodiversity and climate change clusters. And I think this was also touched upon by Marianne in looking at this work, linking the convention with the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. The partnership is also doing some more in-depth work supporting projects on mercury and skin lightening products, mercury and dental amalgam. We have knowledge hubs on our website on those topics that are part of projects together with World Health Organization and Biodiversity Research Institute. And we're also always doing a lot of events, and these have been ramping up in advance of COP5. You can see some little examples on the slide. Our most recent one was held right here in this very room on mercury in lamps. And we had a number of countries and other stakeholders here considering the upcoming discussions at COP5 on that topic. So let's go on to the next slide. It's also the final slide. I wanted to mention one specific area of our work as a Global Mercury Partnership, which I think will be particularly relevant in COP5. So as Marianne mentioned, well, there's an agenda item on artisanal and small-scale gold mining, and there'll be some important discussions at the COP. And we also know that the main obligation on parties with ASGM, the national action plans. We've been steadily getting more and more national action plans completed and submitted to the Secretariat. So what the partnership has been doing over the past months is starting to analyze the data from those national action plans that have been submitted to the Secretariat. This is part of our overall efforts to assist countries that are doing their national action plans. And so we have created a data framework and have been pulling out key information from these national action plans. There's, I think, 30 now that that have been submitted and we've analyzed. And all this is available on our website on our in a series of data dashboards. We have two data dashboards, and I'm showing a screenshot here, but I hope maybe the Gen Secretariat can put the link to this page and you can explore those dashboards. And what we are learning through analyzing the NAPs is that, first of all, this is a very important source of information, and that it's going to contribute a lot to how the COP looks at ASGM in its deliberations. We're seeing some very ambitious targets, some very ambitious phase-out targets, and ambitious implementation plans, but perhaps some challenges in resources. We're also seeing a lot better data than we had before in terms of mercury use and the number of miners, but we're also seeing still a lot of gaps in just understanding this informal sector. So you can look at the data and generate a lot of your own insights, and I encourage you to check out that dashboard. There's also an INF document 6, which we did in collaboration with the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention, where we explain this analysis in more detail, and also look at things like NAP reviews and NAP implementation. Look forward to those discussions as well. So if you're following the ASGM topic, please check out INF 6 as well. So I'll finish there. Thank you very much again for this opportunity, and thanks.
Thank you very much, Ken. So now that you have been provided additional views and updates on the work ongoing, intersessional work ongoing in between meetings of the Conference of the Parties, I'm turning back again to our guests today, our audience, looking first in the room if they have any questions. And I see Indonesia, who hosted the last Conference of the Parties, wanting to take the floor. Esfandri, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Diana, Jen, and the Secretariat for convening this meeting. It's very useful, and we look forward to another briefing session, I guess, before the event. There will be, right? Okay, because I guess usually people start to read documents because of this event, including myself, and it was very useful. I guess the summary the Secretariat provided, Richard, Anna, and Marlene. Yes, Marlene, especially Marlene, because it's very substantive, and so far we think that the proposals are encouraging to achieve the objectives and purposes of the convention. And in particular, we would like to thank the Secretariat for providing document 3, which thought of following up the Bali Declaration we did during the last COP, and it seems it's very good. I mean, it's concrete actions as a follow-up of the prior COP, and we really appreciate that. And that's all for us for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you, Esfandri. Any other question in the room? I'm looking at the colleagues to see if we have, no, there are no questions online so far. No additional comments and no additional questions online. I see requests for sharing links, and the colleagues here will take action and also share the links that were mentioned by our colleague Ken Davis in his presentation. I have also seen some questions on where the documents will be available. So as usual on the webpage of this event, and the link has been shared various times in the chat. Otherwise, it looks like, colleagues, you have provided very clear inputs. Yes, Esfandri, go ahead.
Maybe I would like to seek more information about the proposals of 3 proposals provided by the Africa region. Will there be like specific contact groups or anything arranged or expected to be made for the clarity, I guess, of these proposals? And to be honest with you, we have not been reached bilaterally, and or maybe I miss it. And I think that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Let Marianne answer the question.
It's an excellent question. We do expect fully that there would be a contact group on the annexes A and B and the amendments thereto that were proposed. So yes, we expect a contact group on those. And we've explained in more detail than I was able to explain today. At the regional meetings, there has been more detail provided. And I would also like to point out that we did document briefings that just basically did what I summarized today in a slightly more detailed manner in 2 online document briefings, and those are also available on our website. So we can point you to those. And then we did 4 more in-depth session on 4 topics, not on the amendments topic, but we did it on artisanal and small-scale gold mining, on reporting, on effectiveness evaluation, and financial resources and mechanism. So the presentations that we delivered for those are all available on our website. And if you have any difficulty finding them, we will be happy to point the way. We expect also that the waste threshold issue would go to contact group. And as always, the program of work and budget topic will have a contact group formed. So because our parties in general insist that we only have 1 contact group meeting concurrently with plenary, or 2 contact groups meeting at any given time when plenary is in session, we've tried to design it such that just those 3 contact groups would be needed. But that being said, the parties can always request additional contact groups or small groups or something like Friends of the President discussion group if they want to deliberate further in that setting on any of the draft decisions. Thanks. Oh, and Richard wanted to add something.
Oh, if I may. Yeah, thanks, Marianne. I just wanted to provide a little bit more detail in information on the Sunday briefing that's going to be happening from 12:30 to 1:30. And the items that will be covered on the Sunday briefing will be on national reporting and on the Implementation and Compliance Committee report. So just sort of going back to what Marianne said, if additional information is needed on the other items, there have been discussions or briefings that's been done online that's recorded that you can access on the website. But just to note, the Sunday briefing on October 29 will just cover 2 items that I've mentioned, national reporting and ICC. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Looking again if somebody else has a question. Otherwise, I would like to mention that we have also with us, following this event, the Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights, who mentioned that you have all been very clear and informative, but doesn't have a question. So looking, no, we are also getting very close to the closing of this event. So I think we can, with that, thank all the colleagues. Elena and Michael, is there anything you would like to add? Otherwise, I think we can now close this event. I think you have received a lot of information. A lot of links have been shared, and so they will be also made available on the webpage of the event for those who were here in person. And actually, we are now inviting all those who have joined us in person to have a coffee and discuss with us here. As we close this event, I want to bring to your attention what has been mentioned by the colleagues. So next week, a very important milestone is the 10th anniversary of the convention and the numerous online events that Richard has announced. And we at the Geneva Environment Network will be co-hosting 3 of these, involving various actors from international Geneva and beyond, including the Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and Toxics. So we invite you, the colleagues who are here in the room. Those events are all online, so but we invite you to join us online for those 3 particular events, but also for the many others that have been announced on the agenda. We also want to bring to your attention that there are a few other topics that we will be addressing in the coming weeks, including preparations from the negotiations ongoing on plastic pollution for the new treaty, and a few other important meetings that will also happen in Geneva, and including the standing committee of the convention, the CITES Convention on the trade on endangered species. And we will also be, as we are getting more close to the 6th session of the UN Environmental Assembly, which is taking place in Nairobi, but with a lot of also inputs from stakeholders in international Geneva. We are hosting next week a session on the perspectives on solar radiation modification governance, which is a topic for which not at the last UNEA, but the former one was a resolution was put forward, and it looks like some member states are again considering putting forward a resolution on this topic. So with that, I think it's time to close this session, and I know that we had with us over 100 persons who were following this briefing, and I know that many, as you get and are getting prepared to welcome your delegations for this important meeting, we'll again be looking at this video. So we thank you for being with us, and we hope that the information that was shared today was useful for the work that you have to do. So thank you very much. And I also want to thank here particularly the Gen team, because you must have been seeing, particularly those based in Geneva, that we spam you a lot, and this is because there's a lot happening. And the team has been extremely busy. So we rarely mention all the people working behind the scenes, and you also have a lot of colleagues who are not in the room. Some are here, but not all, at the Minamata Convention and in many other secretariats that do a lot of work behind the scenes. So it's always important to mention that that there are a lot of people working, and we can see the dedication when we have all these people presenting the work they are doing. So with that, it's 3:30, and it's time to close the event. Thank you very much. And thank you, Claudia. We look forward to meet you in Geneva in a few weeks from now.
Thank you very much also for inviting me. And I think I can say in the end that I fully encourage all participants to have constructive and effective comments and debates, so we can have a very successful COP in Geneva. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Claudia.